Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Craig, and I am a cancer survivor. So I'm really excited to be here with all of you today to get to share a bit about my cancer experience and talk about how much Princess Margaret and the Ride to Conquer Cancer mean to me. So in November 2016, when I was 22 years old, one Monday, I felt a lump in my clavicle in the base of my neck. I told my parents and went to the doctor that week, and by Friday, I was diagnosed with this thing called lymphoma. And I didn't even know what lymphoma was, but my doctor pretty quickly informed me it was a type of blood cancer. A week later, after a biopsy and a few more tests, it was confirmed that I had Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 2, and what I thought was a small bump in my clavicle was actually a mass in my chest that was about the size of 2 small chicken breasts, and I had likely been living with that for many months. So I was pretty surprised to get this diagnosis. Only about 990 people in Canada in 2017 were diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, only 470 of those being females, and I was one of them. I didn't have tons of symptoms leading up to it either. My main symptom was just lots of fatigue and tiredness, but I'd been working full time and I was doing lots of overtime, so I thought I was just kind of burnt out. And the typical symptoms like fever or night sweats, I just never had. So it was so shocking, and it was the most devastating thing ever. I'll never forget the day I was diagnosed. But pretty quickly, my family and my friends all banded around me to support me as I began my treatment. So in December, I met my amazing chemo-oncologist. Her name is Dr. Prika, and she's actually here today. Woo! Oops, that was loud. She's riding for the heme team, and she got me into chemo right before Christmas, December 20th. And chemo for me lasted 4 months. I was on the typical Hodgkin's lymphoma regime called ABVD, and I'd go down to Princess Margaret every 2 weeks. My infusions would end up being about 6 hours long each time, and chemo was as tough as everyone says it was. It's really hard to watch yourself lose your hair over those few months. The nausea is brutal, like everyone says. And one of the hardest parts I found was just watching my body get weaker and weaker and more tired as those months went by. That was really, really tough to see, especially being 22. But I got through chemo, and by the end of it, I was ringing that braver belt so hard, and I had waited so long for that. It was such an exciting moment. Yep. Thanks. Yeah, so that was very emotional, but then I started right into radiation the start of May. And radiation was obviously a relief compared to chemo, but there were parts about it that were a bit tricky. When I went for my first radiation session, I had the pretty typical mask you might have seen before. It's like plastic, and they mold it to your face, and they bolt that to the table that you're on to stop you from moving when you're being radiated. But I also had another element to this, and it was a breathing tube. It looked sort of like a snorkel, and that forced you to hold your breath for 20 minutes so that they could radiate in that area, and it would move your lungs and heart out of the way to prevent any extra damage to the healthy tissue. So I'm lying on that bed with this crazy contraption. I can barely move half of my body, and I'm just freaking out. It's pretty claustrophobic and scary, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do this every day for a month now. But the radiation technician picked up on it pretty quickly, and she took the mask off quickly, sat me up, and gave me a pat on the back and said, you know what, everyone who does this is scared. It's an uncomfortable feeling, but you've gotten so far, and you'll get through this. You're gonna be okay. And that kind of compassion and empathy was something I saw all through Princess Margaret. I saw it in the technicians, I saw it in the nurses, and I saw it in the doctors. And that is just one of the reasons why this hospital is so, so special to me. So by the end of that May, when I was done on my treatment, I was looking forward to many months of recovery. And I knew the physical recovery would be tough. I had a long way to go before I was back to where I was before I got sick, but the emotional part was really tough too. When you're in treatment, you're so focused on fighting the disease, you're so focused on beating cancer, getting through that next chemo, looking at the finish line, but when you're done, you kind of have to sit back and say, wow, I just had cancer, oh my gosh. And kind of coming to terms with that is really hard, especially at 22 when none of your friends have been through it. Not many of them really know how to handle it, and everyone's kind of enjoying their lives at this age. But that was a tough part for me, but I pushed through it, and I feel so much better now this time than I did last year. But last year, thank you. Last year at the ride, I was here, and I was supporting my younger brother, who's also riding on the same team as Dr. Prika, the HEAM team. And I had just, go HEAM team. I had just finished radiation. I had a huge rash all up my neck and my back, and it was so itchy I could barely sleep the night before. My voice was super hoarse from the radiation, my hair was just growing back, and I felt really tired. But this year, I'm standing on this stage, and it's been more than a year since I finished treatment, and I'm feeling so much better, and I'm so relieved. But one of the reasons why I'm standing here today is not everyone gets that opportunity. Not everyone gets to get through cancer treatment and be able to say, I'm okay. And that is why we're riding. I have so many friends and family who've gone through years and years of intense treatment. They've gone through multiple surgeries. They've gone through the devastation over and over again of cancer, and that is why we ride. That is why this is so important. We're raising so much money that's going towards life-saving technologies and treatments and research at Princess Margaret, and we're making such a difference. I just want to thank every single rider here today for working so hard to raise so much money, taking the time to ride, and supporting cancer patients and survivors in cancer research, because what you're doing is making a difference, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Dr. Prika? Dr. Prika, are you in the house? This is Lauren's doctor. Lauren also is here with her parents and her brother, Harode.
No, don't leave. So Lauren wasn't able to ride with us today, but this weekend, but we hope she can next year. And we have a wonderful team of doctors and nurses and survivors and friends. So this is one of our jerseys. Look out for us tomorrow. So this is for you, Lauren, and hopefully you can join us next year.
Thank you so much, Lauren. What a beautiful story. And we look forward to you joining us in 2019. And thank you, Dr. Prika, for coming up.